Recording in progress. Okay, we are on time. Share the screen. Okay. If you're comfortable, could somebody let me know that you can hear me and that you can see the screen in full? You can write it on the chat. You can just.
Yes, can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll let people just come in and I'm gonna start. And yeah, very good evening, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today for the Speech Linguistic Patterns Workshop. It's great to be back. This was supposed to be conducted in September, I believe. And we are here today, so I'm very grateful to be back and sharing this session with you guys. Again, I hope you guys had a great evening or a great day earlier at work. I just finished work myself, and I really appreciate you guys joining me here. And you guys could be watching Netflix, but you're here to learn with Speech Academy Asia, and I'm very grateful for your time today. So we're gonna have fun tonight. And it's okay, we're recording this. I'm recording here on Zoom, and I'm also recording with my own camera, and we're going to upload this on YouTube for more people to enjoy later on. And if you want to visit the videos again, you can of course go over to the Speech Academy Asia YouTube channel to check out all my videos there, and of course this one as well. And if you're new here, I would like to first introduce myself. Of course, my name is Rose Azlin, and I have been with Speech Academy Asia for a year now. I've been conducting these speech linguistics workshop with them, and I've actually been a public speaker for 10 years. So it's been a decade of me hosting several shows, and I've recently pivoted to conducting such workshops like this. And I do want to help people and teach them what I know based on my experiences. And I also still learn about my craft, and I would like to share what I've learned with you guys. And also I'm also learning. So the more I interact with people like you guys, I get to learn your own experiences that can also help me improve in my craft. So I'm not a full-time public speaker, just so you know. I also actually have a desktop job like most people, but I do host on the side, and it's also like my secret love. So if you want to check me out, you can also go to my Instagram at @rosazlin. And today's topic is public speaking. How perfect, how perfect. Again, this is something that I've always known, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to share with you guys what I know and also what I've researched online, and just have it in this workshop today as a consolidated sharing session. So if you're also new here, I do have an icon on my presentations. It's called Let's Chat. And if you see that icon on any of my slides, that's when I encourage you. I'm not pressurizing you at all to go to the chat and also just type away. I also want to hear from you guys some of your own experiences, or what are your thoughts about what I'm sharing, and then we can have a very, very quick discussion. I only have an hour with you guys, but I do want to use this time for it to be a two-way conversation. That I say certain things, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, and then we can of course learn from each other. Okay. Now, if you are also, haven't seen my slides before, you will see some of the images I use are very pertinent to what I'm about to share today. So today, all the visuals you will see will be scripts and papers and writings. Of course, I do encourage recycling, of course, but I mean, nowadays people usually just type on their computers, but of course you can also write on a piece of paper. It's very cathartic to do so. So just a note on the visuals that I share on my presentations. So the agenda for today include number one, understanding what entertaining speech is. So part of understanding what it is also knowing what it is not. So I will also explain briefly what persuasive or informative speeches are. So those are different kinds of speeches to entertaining speeches. Secondly, I will also introduce to you some of the people that I look up to in terms of public speaking. And I think it's very important to have some of your favorites that you can emulate and learn from, and just pick out what you like about those styles and then develop your own. So I do want to share with you some of my favorites. So that will be the who part of this presentation, and then the what. I'll give you guys some tips on how to write a good speech. This is also, of course, based on my own experiences. These are not exhaustive at all. This is what works for me, and hopefully will help you in writing your future entertaining speeches. And then lastly is how and why. So again, some ingredients on how you can deliver your speeches in terms of body language, the things that you guys can incorporate. And in terms of the why, I think it can also help with how you deliver it. So I'll explain a little bit more on that later. So we're going to start with understanding what entertaining speech is, but I would like to first introduce to you myself and my own personal experiences being a host for 10 years. So this is basically what I've done for a decade, and these are all the images that I have collated that I could find. Of course, my experiences is more than all of this. I can just go through with you briefly. You know, I've been hosting for the SEA Games. I've hosted comedy shows. You see some familiar faces there. Jose Leong is there. Fakafas is there as well. I've hosted award shows, award ceremonies. That's Professor Tan Cho Chuan from NUS. And then you can see I've also hosted for events, including former Senior Minister Zainul Abidin in presence, and also former Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong has also been my VIP at some of my events. I've hosted 4 traditional performances, jazz performances, and if you could see the top right, I know I'm blocking it a little bit. You can see the image here on the top right. Here is me basically at my latest event, at a circus event that I held 2 weekends ago. I have another show coming up this weekend. If you'd like to check it out, that'd be great. And the one on the bottom right is actually, bottom left is actually my bottom right. And my bottom right is a picture of me at a sports event. So I've hosted for a bunch of different events for different audiences, different clients, and I can share with you, you know, just some of my tips on how the whole process can work and what my experiences have been like. And so what happens is when you are hired for a show, they will hire you specifically for your style. So, you know, granted that you have, you know, established yourself and, you know, people know what your style is, they will hire you specifically for that. My personal style is I am more informal, I'm more casual, and I'm more humorous. So I'm usually used as the humor part of a very serious event. And also a lot of arts festivals, music festivals, dance festivals, they usually need a more casual, more fun-loving host. And that's what they hire me for. So they will first hire you based on your style. So just know that it's important to have a personal style. Once you get the gig, we call it a gig, they will tell you what the event is about. And as a host, yes, you know, you have to entertain, right? You are an entertainer speaker, so to speak, but you also have a lot of responsibilities. So, and those are responsibilities I take very, very seriously. I'm a very diligent type of host, where I want to know what the program is. I would learn that as intently as the organizers themselves. I want to know what the program is. I want to know who I'm speaking to in terms of the audience, what their characteristics are like, what their demographics are like, and then I'm able to tailor my scripts accordingly. At the same time, I want to know who the VIPs are, and I want to know what they look like so that I can greet them if they're in the audience and I happen to pass them by. I need to know how they look like, right? I can't just, you know, ignore them. If they're VVIPs like ministers and prime ministers, it's important for me to know that as well. And then I will go down to the nitty-gritty of my script and to go through each word to make sure that I'm clear on the pronunciations. And sometimes at award ceremonies especially, you have to say a lot of different names. And I myself have a very complicated name. My name is Rose Azlin, and people will call me Rosalind all the time or Roslyn all the time. And I know firsthand what it's like to have your name mispronounced. And I would take it upon myself to make sure that I clarify all the names with either the performers or, you know, the guests. And, you know, even the VIPs, I have to make sure that if I have to Google it, I will Google it. If I can check with them directly, I would. Or if I can check with the organizers, I would. And I would spell it out phonetically just so that I don't mess up when I'm on stage. So those are things that I really have to take note of, you know. And again, the whole program, I basically have to know what's going on at what time. And I have to keep to the time as well. as an entertainer speech, yes, you're there to entertain and to have fun, but you also have to make sure that you keep to the time of the program, because sometimes the event can go for hours long. And if you delay a certain segment, it's going to delay the next program, it's going to delay the whole night, and people are going to be there for like 4 or 5 hours, and nobody wants to be there for that long. So I have to be in two minds. I have to be in the fun mode, and I have to be in organized mode while on stage where everybody's looking at me and the spotlight is on me. So those are my responsibilities as a host. And on top of that, when I have my script, I have to go home and I have to memorize. And sometimes I have an example here of my cue cards for an event that I had recently, where I have to memorize all 20 pages of this as much as I can, just so that when I'm on stage, I sound confident, I know what I'm talking about inside and out. And I have to also edit it in my styles. So if certain sentences are not how I would say it, I would change it to make sure that it's more authentic to my style and how I would say it. Sometimes when you type things out, they look great, on a piece of a paper, but when you say it, there are better ways for you to say certain things so that they have a ring to it. And sometimes you want to put in a joke in there if you feel like it's important. That's how I have to do as well. So those are my responsibilities as a host. So I think it's just important for me to share with you that being an entertaining host is not just about making people laugh, but there's so many actual responsibilities that you have, because you're basically the face of the organizers, right? The organizers are not going to go up there and say at 12 p.m. today, we're going to do this. No, it's your responsibility to relay that message in a fun way, in a subtle way, where people don't really realize that they are actually on schedule. So I was like trying to rack my brain on some of my best experiences that I can share today. And it brings me back to one event that I had when I was starting out. So when I was younger, much younger, when I was way younger, I had to host an award ceremony. So the audience was full of people who were out for an award. So they were nervous. So they didn't know, whether they were going to win it or not. And then there were, of course, supporters right at the back. And there were VIPs, of course, very important people in the audience. And as a host, my brief was to make sure that you liven up the atmosphere so that people don't feel too scared or too intense in the audience, right? Because they all want to win. And we were about to announce the winners. So I had a co-host with me, and we realized that we had a slot in our whole program where we had to interact with the audience. It's like audience interaction. And at that time, usually the organizers let you do what you want to do as a host, what you think the people would enjoy. So they're leaving up to you to basically craft your bit, you call it a bit. So we had to go down into the audience and basically spread ourselves out, because it's a huge auditorium. And my co-host said, I'm going to take this side, you're going to take that side. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be here. And I had planned a bit. The thing about planning bits is that it exists in your head, and there's so many variables. The bit had to do with me finding an audience member who would be a good sport. Sometimes when you want to do something and you realize that you don't really have a very cooperative, unsuspecting partner, of course, I don't, fault them for that, but, they get clamped up and they get shy, and then your whole bit just falls through. So I had a bit where I had to find an audience member who was up for an award. So I went up to him, and my bit was to say, I want you to share with me your best winning reaction. That was the bit. So in order for me to demonstrate what a winning reaction was going to be, I had to do it first. And I was like, I am going to commit to this. I am going to show him what the best winning reaction is. And I prayed to God that he can mimic that, he could do that. So it was a very over top reaction where I had to look straight into the camera, because this was streaming live. I looked into the camera and I said, I want you to do this. Oh my God, this is so unexpected. So he had to do that. It was a very dramatic reaction. Once I did that, the whole audience was laughing, and they kind of understood, okay, now he has to do that. So I said, sir, now it's your turn. And he stood up. He was very tentative. He was very shy. I was like, oh, please be a sport. Please be a sport. And then he said, oh my God, this is so unexpected. In a very high-pitched voice. His friends were supporting him. The audience was laughing. His supporters right at the back were supporting him. And they all were in cheers. And I was like, thank you, sir, for being such a great sport. I really hope you win. Have a great the rest of the night. And I was like, Yanto, over to you. And the bit was over and it was hilarious. It was a point of me planning something out, having it worked out, having the joke basically launch really well. Towards the end of the night, the very important person went up on stage and she had won an award. And she opened her speech with saying, oh my God, this is so unexpected. And this was like 2 hours in. She still remembered the joke. And everyone laughed and it became the joke of the whole event where people, used that whenever they received an award, following her. So I thought that was so perfect. I had planned it in my head. I executed and it went really well and it carried on to the night. And at the end of the night, once the event was over, I was mingling with the guests and the organizers, and an audience member actually came up to me and she said, I remember you. I remember you from school. We went to school together. And I didn't know you had that in you. I didn't know that you could do that you're so funny. And I was like, to be honest, I didn't know that myself. I just really had to commit to that. And when you're on stage, and I think, if you have the experience to be on stage, you kind of take on this more strong and more confident persona. And, you do things that you didn't think you could, only because having that bit to me become successful was more important than me being shy or me being hesitant. I cannot be hesitant. I have to give it my all. So I did that bit, which basically inspired him to do it just as well, and then inspired other people to also just kind of let loose for that night. And it's okay if you don't win. You could have your own little moment of you pretending that you won. So that was one of my favorite experiences, and I still remember that day as the day that I basically broke out of my shell, committed to something, have it work out really, really well, and have people remember me for it. And I still get called back for that particular event 10 years down the road. And I'm very grateful for that. And of course, I'm still learning, to test out different bits. Will all bits work? No, I can assure you now, no. Sometimes, jokes fall flat. You just move on. That is life. But it's good to take risks. Sometimes the payoff is really great. And with that said, I actually have more horror stories to share, but we don't have so much time for me to share all the bad stories. But of course, there were great experiences that I wanted to just share with you. And some of the tips will actually also relate to that story. So what is an entertaining speech? Once again, it is basically you entertaining the audience. Your responsibility is to liven up the atmosphere and to make sure that the audiences enjoy themselves, that they feel relaxed, regardless how intense the situation can be. So that is your responsibility. And again, if you are not a host necessarily, sometimes you can give the speech when you are at a wedding. You need to give a toast for your friend or for your family member. That could be an entertaining speech as well. Acceptance speeches at an award, as I mentioned, you can say something quite humorous during your acceptance speech, and motivational speeches as well can be quite entertaining depending on the topic as well. So again, I just wanted to compare what other speeches could be like. So you may be familiar with persuasive pitches, especially if you're in sales, which I ironically am in sales, and I do persuasive speeches all the time. So what this kind of speech does is it's a sharing where you want to sway the listener to think the way you do. So it's really to kind of change their mind so that they are more on board with what it is that you are selling. So again, it's to convince and sway audience to the speaker's point of view. That is not the objective of an entertaining speech at all. You're not trying to convince anybody. You're not trying to sell anything. Sometimes, let me just say, you're not even trying to sell yourself, okay? Some of the jokes that I think land really well are the self-deprecating jokes. Is when, let's say I'm on stage and little kids are performing and they're doing so well, and you wonder, and I say something like, I wonder what I'm doing wrong with my life that I cannot do that. And I'm like 3 times this person's age. So things like that. You're not trying to sell anything. You are really just living in the moment, being your authentic self. So there's no swaying when it comes to entertaining speech. But of course, if you work in sales, you probably need to change their mind so that they buy what it is that you're selling. Another form of speech is an informative speech. So these ones are usually you see in lectures or TED Talks. So these are more informative and informative speeches, of course. So they will be more educational, and it's an opportunity for you to explain certain things. It could be a little dry. Again, you could inject some entertainment into an informative speech, but just make sure that your entertaining speeches are not too informative and not too educational, because people are not expecting to be taught a lesson here. They really just want to enjoy. But just to share what informative speech is and how it differs with an entertaining speech. Okay, now we're going to go to slightly more fun part where we're going to learn from the pros. Again, these are some of my favorite speakers. You surely have your own, and if this is the first time you're checking them out, it's great for you to check out more of their work. And these are just my favorites. And here is the Let's Chat icon. So I would like you guys to, number one, try to identify who these speakers are. If you know who they are, do type that out in the chat function. And then I also want you to share with me why you think this person's speech or monologue works. What is your favorite thing about the speeches? It could be their personal style. You think they're very cool. You think they have swag. You think they're super confident. It could be about their content or how relatable their content is. It could be about humor, about how they're able to set up the joke really well, deliver the punchline really well. So it's very short clips. I want you guys to pay attention and chat away. And I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Okay, so this is the first speaker. I want you to first write who you think this is, or if you know who they are, just type away and then share with us what your favorite things are about this speech.
No sound. There's no
Sorry, I
sound.
cannot hear.
Let me share with sound. Share sound.
It's a lie.
Okay, here we go.
What do you do at the end of a date when you know you don't want to see this person ever again for the rest of your life? What do you say? What do you say? It doesn't, no matter what you say, it's a lie. I'll see you around. See you around. If you're around and I'm around, I'll see you around that area. You'll be around other people. You won't be around me, but you will be around. Take care now. You ever say that to somebody? Take care now. Take care now. Because I'm not going to be taking care of you. So you should take care now. Take care. Take care. What does that mean? Take care. Take off. Isn't that what you really want to say? Take off now. Get out of here.
Okay, I want to see who dares to speak. Okay, so this is Jerry Seinfeld, comedian. Okay, so my favorite things about his speech, I think it's his relatability and his confidence and the way that he is so natural. So you can share with me as well what your favorite things about him. So I love Jerry Seinfeld because I think that his sets are usually very relatable, and it's always about everyday things that you don't really give a second thought about, but the way that he talks about it makes you think. So it's very thought-provoking, and it's great conversation starters with other people. So you can use some of the topics that he's using, and then you can share that with your friends of like, have you ever thought about it this way? So that's one of my favorite things about Jerry Seinfeld. There's so many more of his monologues that I love. So you can go on YouTube, of course, you can check out Seinfeld, the show as well, where he always starts off and always ends up with a monologue, a set. And then, or you can just watch all his stand-up comedy. He has a lot going on. So the next
What do you
speaker.
do at the end of a date?
Okay, so again, share with me if you know this person, and then let me know what your favorite things are about his speech or his set.
It's a lot of pressure dealing with kids, man, but I'm learning. Here's one thing I've learned. Here's why my patience is getting better. I've realized this: my kids are going to make mistakes. The reason why, when I was a kid, I made mistakes. I did a lot of stupid stuff as a child. My blood's in them, they're going to follow suit. With that being said, I don't get as mad as I used to. I'm calming down. My daughter cursed for the first time the other day. I didn't get mad. We was watching SpongeBob, right? Something happened to Patrick. Out of nowhere, she got mad. She was like, shit! I said, wait, what? What'd you say? She's like, shit, they got Patrick, Dad. You not watching? I said, whoa. All right.
Okay, so basically the rest of the set was not, safe to just share, but this is Kevin Hart. So he's also a stand-up comedian, and he is also an actor. And my favorite things about his set is that he's a great storyteller, and his whole 1 hour long set can actually be one story smoothly transitioning to the next, and then the next, and then the next. And because these stories are personal to him, he can deliver them in a very authentic way and not miss a beat. Because if you're telling your truth, then you don't have to necessarily think about how to say it. It is your story. You can say it in any way. It can be different in every show, because as long as the core of the story is the same, how you deliver it is, as long as it's authentic to you, you'll be fine and you'll be confident about it. I want to say that sometimes when you are an MC or a host like me, you're given a script that you're very unfamiliar with, and it does make you stumble a little bit, because it's not a concept that you are familiar with. Like when I was doing a circus event, I wasn't familiar with the different techniques and different scales of being in a circus. I've never been to a circus. I've never worked in a circus. So when those terminologies came in, it was important for me to study them. And you have to fake a bit. You have to fake a bit like what you're talking about, just so that people don't see through you, that you're just basically reading. No, you're not just reading. You have to deliver, right? You're trying to convey a message, and it's important for you to be in tune with what you're saying so that you can deliver it in a very authentic way. And only when you do it in an authentic way that is true to you, that people are really going to connect with you. If you're just reading, if you have a script and you're just reading it like this, people will get very disconnected, because they know that you don't know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then why should I listen to you? So it's important for you to always speak from the heart and what is true to you. And if it's a concept that you're not familiar with, familiarize yourself with it. Learn about it, do some research about it, ask the organizers about it, just so that you are, if you're even 50% more knowledgeable about it than you were a day ago, that still works. That is still a confidence that you can take with you and on stage. It's Kevin Hart. So for me personally, I think stand-up comedians are the masters of public speaking. So some of the things that I love about them is that, again, they're very prepared and they know their material inside out. Why? Because it is their own experiences, their own stories. Of course, sometimes they do get other writers to write it for them, but it doesn't mean that they're not as prepared. And usually they can, tap on their old other forms of experiences to connect them with the stories that someone else have written, just so that it would be still a truthful story for them to share. So again, when you are prepared, just like me, I'm very diligent as an MC. I told you, when you're prepared, you can exude confidence on stage because you know what's going on. You are in control of the moment. You're in control of yourself on the stage, and that's really important. The next one is that they can think on their feet. Now, sometimes where you're in, as prepared as you can be at home, you're rehearsing and you're practicing, you're rehearsing in the shower or in front of your family or your significant other. When you're on stage, anything can happen, and it could be the most random thing that throws you off your game. And that happens to me a lot. We call them, sometimes the hecklers. The hecklers can try to throw you off your game, and that happens. And you have to react. Okay, sometimes you can be confident and just ignore it, fine. If a baby is crying in the audience, you can, ignore that. If someone is speaking to you, directly to you, you can break the routine and address that person directly to say that, yes, I hear you. I know what you're trying to do to me. And engage with them, just so that they know that they can. So I'm talking about the hecklers, so that they know that they're not in control of you. You are the one with the microphone. You're controlling the show. You are the master of ceremony, hence MC, and therefore you get the final say. So whenever anything happens, know that you can be in control of that. You can react to that. And you have to be able to, again, think on your feet, adapt and react, especially when the audiences are very demanding. The next one is they talk about the truth, as I mentioned, such as Seinfeld said. He talks about, normal human condition, about dating, or people, having to interact with people that they don't want to necessarily talk about. Why would you say take care when what you really mean is take off, So again, these are, everyday things that people don't really talk about. They will insert those examples into their speech to make it more relatable. If you talk about rocket science and I don't know what that is, I'm not going to be able to connect with you. But if you talk about everyday things that I also go through and I experience, and I never thought about it that way, I will be more likely to listen to what you have to say, because this is actually good material. And of course, if you're talking about something very sensitive or something very serious, you can do it in a way that lightens the mood. And that's where you use humor cleverly. You have to use humor in a very clever way, and that will give you even more props when you're dealing with a very serious human condition. Next, of course, again, like I said, they tell their personal story so that they can connect with the audience. And lastly, I feel like stand-up comedians, they have impeccable timing. They know how to read the room. Sometimes you need to be able to have great EQ. Let's just say, this is not, disregard how important EQ is. Read the room. See whether they are, vibing with your style of humor. If all I do is sarcasm all the way and I feel like none of it is landing, switch it up. Again, think on your feet, switch it up, and find a way that you can actually reach out to this particular type of audience. So if you have a joke and it's not working, again, find a way that you can twist it, or maybe just disregard it altogether. So they are able to read the room, and therefore they know how to set up whatever it is that they're going to say. Like, this is the perfect time for me to say this. They're looser, like once the audience is loose and they get to know you, set it up, set the joke, and then they also know when to pause and they know when to emphasize, and then they deliver the punchline. One thing I have to say about being a public speaker is that you cannot be afraid of silences. Sometimes people, especially Singaporeans, I have to say, we like to rush through our speeches. We're just like a train, just blah, 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 just because you want to get it over and done with. You want to get out of there. You want to get to the end of your speech so that it will be over. But you're not allowing yourself, not allowing the audience time to really digest what it is that you're trying to say. And the pauses are very important. So don't be afraid of the need to just have a pause and be silent, because that can give a dramatic effect. That can even, give the audience this like moment of, oh my gosh, what's happening? I need to really sit up and pay attention. So that's the impact or the power of sometimes just silence. You say something and you kind of take a pause, take a beat, and then bring it back up, and people will start to follow you through. That's how you grab their attention and take them on a journey where there's movement, and then we're going to take a pause. There's movement, and we're going to take a pause. So again, stand-up comedians, they have great timing and they can read it really, really well. So these are skills that you can learn. Of course, I'm not going to, leave out my women, right? I'm not just going to present all the guys. So this is somebody, if you know her, do share in the chat, and you can also share with me your favorite thing about it. I'm going to play the video now.
Just as we need more men like my father, who championed my 11-year-old self to stand up for what is right. In doing this, we remind girls that their small voices are in fact not small at all, and that they can affect change. In doing this, we remind women that their involvement matters, that they need to become active in their communities, in their local governments, as well as in the highest parliamentary positions. It is just imperative. Women need a seat at the table. They need an invitation to be seated there. And in some cases, where this isn't available, well then you know what? Then they need to create their own table.
Okay, So this is, of course, Meghan Markle. She's the Duchess of Sussex. She's also an American actress. So this was her at the UN Women Conference in 2015. And what I love about this speech is a little informative, right? She's giving a little bit of a motivation speech, is that she does share her personal stories in that. She started out with her dad, and she uses very inspirational, her speech is very inspirational, and the way that she ends has a very inspirational note, and she is able to paint a picture for us. The analogies are important, you know, that women need a sit at a table, and you know, they need to create their own table. Great analogy, great imagery, very inspirational. And she doesn't, I mean, she's not like at the speed of Kevin Hart, where he just kind of like, you know, just speaks really quickly, because that's his style. Her style is more slow and more delicate, and she's able to take the pauses and not be afraid of the pauses. She lets it breathe. She lets you listen and then applaud. You know, she's not like, I don't care about the applaud. No, she lets it just happen. You know, this is her interacting to how the audience is behaving and reacting to her speech. So I love this speech because it's just so, it warms my heart. So speeches like this, yes, informative a little bit, but also entertaining, because she does have a personal touch to it, and it's very engaging. It lightens the mood. So sometimes when you have a long show, even if it's an award show, and you want to end it, you know, you want to say something sweet to the people who didn't win, you can also add in, you know, some inspirations in there, even if it's just we're all winners here, and you know, we're all winners at heart, you're all winners in my eyes, something inspirational. And that is a memorable ending that usually people remember more than you think, more than you know, the bits that you may have in the beginning. If you can have an impactful ending, that, to me, you're a winner. Okay, so part 3, tips to write a good speech. So this is more on your content, and I would say once you have the occasion and responsibilities as a speaker established, because this is not you know, just something that you can apply to every single speech, what I'm about to share with you. Please tailor it based on what speech it is that you're given. And once you know responsibilities, if it's a wedding speech, it's going to be different from an award acceptance speech, from you being an MC for an event, and even within the event, the different types of event. So again, this is not exhaustive, and this does not apply to everything. So do, you know, take what you need based on what your occasion is. Number 1 is to make an outline. It doesn't matter that this is an entertaining speech and people are going to laugh. As funny as you think you are, it's always still important to prepare. Always important to at least have an outline. So an outline, basically, you have an introduction, a middle, and an end. Even if it's, you know, an impromptu thing, grab your phone, just type some basic thing on your way to the stage, just so that your mind doesn't blank out. And you cannot underestimate how intimidating it is when people are all staring at you, even though you know all of them. It can get nerve-wracking. I still get very nervous about it. And I think, you know, nerves are good. It shows that you're human and that you still care. So always still have an outline, even if it's just a brief one that you have to rush through. So in an outline, usually, like I said, an intro, a middle, and an end. An intro, something to consider, is to have a unique greeting. Okay, this is just to break the ice, because when you're up there and people are just gonna watch you, how you start also matters. It matters a lot, because if you're gonna go, to be honest, I rarely start with "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." I rarely start with that, because that is too formal, and I don't want to create the separation between presenter and audience. No, we are in a show together. We're in this program together, and I want you to be in my role as much as I want to be in yours. So break the ice. So it's important. Sometimes if you just want to say, "This is as nervous as heck." If you want to say you're nervous, you want to admit that. If that's your opening line, ice is broken, because people know, okay, this person is being vulnerable. I'm going to empathize and I'm going to support this person. If you want to start with a question, have you guys ever thought about, you know, again, just kind of make it unique so that people kind of pay attention a little bit, right? If they're expecting a good afternoon, a good evening, or whatever, good morning from you, but you break it with something unique, that's going to give them a little bit more of, it's going to give them a bit of an impact, and they want to listen more. Oh my gosh, this person is so unexpected. a unique greeting will be a great touch. In the middle is when you try to link up, how you want to tell your story. Again, the outline is really important. So you want to see how you're going to start and what it's going to be, the next story, and how is that going to lead to the next story, and that's how that's going to lead to the next story. So again, this journey, even if it's a short speech, just think about it. You want to start off with what I'm wearing today. Let's say, oh man, this dress is a bad choice. That's how you start. And then you talk about, the events, and then you talk about how the costume of the performers are amazing. It all connects. It means that you were thinking about this. That's why you're talking about that. And that's why you're talking about that. And the people pay attention to the performers' costumes and how amazing they look. So think about how you want to transition. Think about how it's going to link until the end. And at the end, like I said in Meghan Markle's speech, it's good to leave with something memorable, something that people can, think about. And if you don't have any cool quotes, it's okay to quote somebody else and then just credit them accordingly. If you don't know who their name is, you can just say, I heard it from some guy, or heard it from a friend, or I once read this book that said, okay. Nobody says you have to, come up with something original on the spot. You don't have to. So as long as it's something memorable, like I said, people will remember that as the whole speech sometimes, and that's the impact that you leave on them, and they're going to remember you specifically for that. So if you can take the time to think of how you want to end your speeches with an impact, if it's a joke or if it's something inspirational, that would be great. That would be helpful. Okay. When you're writing the content, what are the things that you can include? Specific examples. Specific examples, like I said, like my story where I talk about a specific event that happened when I was, much younger and I was starting out in the career. And I painted you a picture of me surrounded by all these people who were anticipating whether they were going to win or not in an auditorium. I could have told you that it was a very cold auditorium. I could have told you that there were supporters at the back, to paint a picture so that it's a very, so that people are able to connect with your story a little bit more. So the only way that you can paint a story is when you can give specific examples. So think of examples. If you're giving a speech at a wedding, for instance, think about specific moments that you had with, the groom or the bride. If that's why you're giving the speech, you're the best man or you're the maid of honor. So think about those kind of experiences. That would be great. That would be great kind of examples. But if you don't have them, like I said, it's okay to use examples from books, from movies you've watched, from TV shows that you love, for something that someone else said. It's okay. So as long as you have some examples, it does make it a bit more exciting to the listeners. Inject humor. I would suggest to still test it out. If you can, test out your jokes on somebody to see if it lands. How do you set it up and whether the punchline is good? If you want to use somebody else's joke, you can do that as well. I still recommend you to, if you want to localize it, that would be great as well. You want to make it more personal to you, also that could work, right? But jokes, if you have time, test it out and then see if it lands. But if it doesn't land, from my experience, you survive. It's okay. It's not going to kill you, but at least you took a risk, and I applaud you for that. But if you can have a joke in there, that would be great in an entertaining speech. So again, people hire me for my sarcasm, and sometimes I'm just spontaneously funny, and it could go either way. But I'm used to it, so. I do encourage you to take those risks if you want to, and if it doesn't work out, it's going to be okay. And keep in mind your audience, of course. When you're writing your content, think about who you're going to speak this to. I have hosted for little children, to teenagers, to young adults, black tie adults, casual adults. I've hosted for senior citizens. I've hosted for Army boys. I've hosted for theater kids. All different audiences. One will definitely not work for the other. I can assure you that. So regardless of how experienced you are or how prepared you can be, just know that you have to still understand who you're speaking with. The script is given to you sometimes, but still ask the organizers, who am I speaking to? Who is the majority of the people in your audience? And also just take note of certain sensitivities, certain things that you shouldn't say, because, people are in the audience, and you should be mindful, you should be a little bit more sensitive. Do keep that in mind as well, once you know who are in the audience. and just, if you have to improvise, if you see somebody in the audience, let's say someone famous, sometimes I see someone famous in the audience and I wasn't expecting that, make a remark, make a cool remark and kind of just make everyone feel like, oh, it's not a regular show. It has some unexpected twists and turns. So, you can definitely riff off with that as well. So just, keep an eye on the audience, know who they are. And if there's people that you recognize, say something about it, and just don't feel like you are, kind of stuck with what you have to say. Again, think on your feet. If there are things that you want to say that you see happening in the audience, you can definitely use that in your material. Practice. I practice at least twice before all of my shows, and that includes me memorizing about 70% of my script. I try to know my stuff as much as I can, so that when I'm on stage, I'm not too worried about what it is that I have to say. I just have to think about how I deliver it, and that I want to make sure that I can inject as much of my personality into the script as possible. So the content to me has to be second nature as much as I can. I can be with it. So again, I wanted to include to note the time as well. Again, when you are, even if you're given a speech, if you're given the responsibility to give a speech as a best man at a wedding, you're given a limited amount of time. So you have to be respectful of that. So if you can just practice and time yourself, that would be great. Even the presentations like this, I have to time that I just keep you for an hour, and I'm not gonna go beyond that, because again, yes, you are here to make people laugh, and yes, you are here to entertain, but you also have a responsibility to keep to the program, and you have to keep to the time as well. So if you can do rehearse, just so that you know your material and you can go up there feeling more confident, and also time yourself, just so you know that you are within the limits that someone else have given you. Always remember, if you are a host, okay, if you're given the opportunity to be a host, you are not the star of the show, okay? You are not, this is not your show. You are just somebody who is guiding the program in a very fun way, and make sure that, everybody keeps to what it is that they're supposed to do. Usually the celebrities are the stars, or, the performers are the stars, the guests of honors are the stars. You are not the star of the show. You have a responsibility. So yes, you can have fun, but make sure that you also are on the side of the organizers and say, okay, I'm going to keep to this time, and this is the program, and that's just like the responsible thing to do. And that's also what keeps you being hired again and again, speaking from experience. Okay, so that was a very quick one. So the last part that I want to share is, once you're on stage, or once you're given a microphone, what you need to do. So this is basically the how and a little bit of why as well. So when you're on stage, again, body language is really important. Have good posture, but little things that you also need to practice. For instance, if you have cue cards in your hands, and then you have, when I use my makeup brush as a microphone, how would you hold your microphone, and how are you going to flip your cue cards, right? So I have to know what is my last sentence. I have to memorize what my last sentence is, just so that when I'm flipping the card, I don't have to look at it. So whatever it is, I already know what that is. I don't have to look. I flip and I go to the next one. I will read out the first few lines. I know 70% of what that is. Last sentence I have to memorize, so I don't have to look at the script. You flip. So again, things like this you need to rehearse. Where you walk on stage, how do you walk about stage? Sometimes you're given just a specific spot, right? You can only walk here. Why? Because the lighting crew have already, directed the spotlight for just that area. You cannot move beyond your spotlight. Again, rehearse that. How much further can you walk? How I was in the shadows a lot in my last show, and the organizer just told me, you're in the shadows. So I have to walk for my following set. I had to walk a little bit more to the front so that I catch the light. So things like that you have to rehearse as much as you can, right? How you appear is important. So if you can rehearse in front of the mirror, if you can do a recording just to see how your body language is, how all your props are working, that would be great. Always, try to practice this, as I mentioned. So body language is important. Of course, you have to smile, just give an authentic smile and make eye contact. I am big on eye contact. I would look at the audience member and make sure that they look back at me. And people usually say like, oh no, as a host, I get nervous. As a speaker, I'm nervous to look at the audience. Let me tell you, the audience are just as nervous to look back at you. for some reason, I look at them and they just avert my eye contact. They don't like to look at you. I think they think that they're gonna pick, like I'm gonna pick them out or something. So no, I like to look at them just so that, hi sir, I'm very grateful that you're here with me today. So that's what I like to say, so that they feel, oh, you know, she's talking to me. Yes, I am talking to you. We're all here, all in this together. So that creates that connection, and that also makes them want to listen to you a little bit more, because suddenly you're not just this far away person on stage. You know, no, you are this person who have made a connection with you, and you kind of like want to root for that person once that person has crossed that, you know, stranger part of your life, and suddenly this person is, you know, almost a friend. And sometimes they do come up to me after the show. They just say, hey, good job. You know, it's like, oh, thanks for showing up. You know, and we're all friends. Always great to make friends with your audience. Okay, various intonations. So I mean, technically we have the 5 P's: the pace, pause, phrasing, pitch, and projection. Again, it's important for you to, you know, memorize your script and to know when you got to do the pauses. And intonation meaning, you know, certain times when it's more effective to be louder, or when it's more effective to be softer for a certain effect. It's good to keep in mind of that. Projection is if you don't have a microphone, then you probably need to project. One thing that I'm still working on is to breathe before every speech. It really helps, right? It really helps you to calm you down. You take a deep breath before you step on stage, and then you go out, and then you kind of more at ease, and you're not, you know, like jumpy. Again, nerves are really good, but nerves can also throw you out, and you can sometimes just blank out a little bit when you're so intimidated by everyone staring at you. So if you take a breath, it kind of centers you to the moment, to say that I'm about to deliver this, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to happen, as opposed to just kind of being all over the place. No, just focus on one task at a time, and that is to be on stage. Second task is to, you know, deliver the introduction, and third task, and so on and so forth. So important to take a breath. It centers you, and it also makes sure that your speech is, you know, of a good pacing, and that you're not rushing through it. Okay, so good to practice this as well. Lastly, I can throw this in here, right? Be confident, as if it's something you can buy. Like, oh, everybody just be confident. No, okay, it doesn't work. Okay, so this is my trick. What it all starts with the mind. Okay, confidence starts with how you think. So when you are given a task to deliver a speech, okay, know that your objectives are to tell the truth, to tell your truth, to be yourself, which is to be authentic, and to make an impact. Those are your objectives. Okay, to be liked, to be perfect are secondary, if at all, not part of your objectives. That's the great thing about entertainment speeches, is that it is okay to fumble and, you know, to be imperfect, because it's a casual event. You're supposed to make people laugh, and people connect when you're being real. So just know that when you're going on stage right now, my job is to be my best friend's best man at his wedding. My job is to be the greatest sister to my sister who's getting married. That's your task. So when you change your priority, you change your mindset, everything else about, you know, having to be perfect is not the center focus. Because if as much as you rehearse, you know, as diligent as I am in rehearsing and practicing and knowing my stuff, I still mess up. But I know that as long as I'm being on task, and that is my task is to deliver the speech in an authentic way and to make an impact, meaning I want to make people laugh today. Today, I'm going to make sure that your 1 hour with me is something that you can take away with you and you can learn something. That's my task. That's my objective for today. To be perfect, I'm not even thinking about that, because I don't want to be too self-conscious about how my hair is, or you know, me not stuttering, or me, you know, speaking too fast. If I'm always focused on that, then you can know that I'm too in my head. But if my objective is to connect with you, to make an impact on you, and to hopefully, you know, inspire you in some way, then it is a pressure valve. You know, it eases the pressure of making sure that this speech goes a certain way that I expect it to be. No, as long as I do my job and that's the priority, I am not nervous about that. I'm not nervous about my intention because I know what it is. And as long as I'm here delivering something that's truth to me and it's authentic to me, and that I know the core of what I'm doing is to help you, then I'm fine. So that being my objective, I don't get nervous about that because it's just being yourself. So whenever you're on stage and you have to give deliver a huge speech, for instance, just try to reprioritize what your objectives are. And if it is to make a difference, to make an impact, to, make somebody's day, then it's a good objective. So it's a good day. So it's a good thing that you're doing. So there's no need to be nervous about that, right? Nobody's asking, you're not trying to win an award like those kids. You're just there to do your job, and it's a positive thing, and there shouldn't be anything that kind of throws you off as long as you're being yourself. So that's how I would say that's what works for me. And I know that I always talk about me having all these responsibilities as an MC and me keeping the program, because I know that's my objective. Am I hired to be a model on stage? I'm not. So I don't have to be perfect. So they hire me, a human being with flaws, to deliver certain messages. That's your job. And when that becomes your focus, everything else fades away. Trust me, it has worked for me for 10 years, and I'm sure it will be helpful to you as well. And of course, don't forget to breathe right before you go up on stage. And that is it. That is it. I can give 5 minutes back to you guys. So all I have to say that the important things that I want to share with you guys now that I still have you, and maybe to even share with your kids, is to know that all of us have a very unique point of view. No two people share the same experiences. And by that virtue alone, it makes what we say worth listening to. Because I'm not going to be able to hear that particular story from that other person if it wasn't from you. So it has to come from you. And because of that, we all have the unique voice that's worthy to be listened to, that people who are in the audience, they want to listen to, because it's unique perspective to you. So know that you have a unique point of view, you have a unique voice, and the only person who can say your stories is you. So I hope that gives you the empowerment, that you feel empowered, that your uniqueness is what people are rooting for and want to hear, and you deserve to be heard. So that's all I have to say. And I want to thank you guys again so much for joining for today's speech linguistics workshop. I will be back next month for a new topic. If there's anything else that you want me to talk about or share about, I'm more than happy to do some research and also to share my experiences about that. And if you want to check out this video, it will be uploaded on the YouTube channel of Speech Academy Asia. You can also find me on Instagram at @Azlin. If there's anything that you want to share or something that you learned, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you guys. And I hope to see you guys again very, very soon. So thanks again, and have a great evening. Bye.